And oftentimes when we've traced back the stories about these, we find out that 3 seed companies, 3 seed catalogs may list it, but it's one grower that they're all depending on, okay? And Chuck and I were talking a little bit today about how dramatically the nursery industry is changing. The Northwest probably has the most robust set of private nurseries with great fruit trees and rootstocks and vine crops, but 800 independently owned nurseries have been lost from business within the last 15 years as Home Depot lawn and garden shops that I call pseudo nurseries, or Walmart garden shops, or the ones associated with chain hardware stores, have started selling plants, most of them that aren't really well adapted to this region, of course. But the sadder thing is that the incredible knowledge that nurserymen have always had that they offer to their customers isn't being transmitted, of course, by the young staff at a Home Depot. And if the average age of the American farmer is 58, 59 years old, the average age of a good nurseryman is probably 69 or 79. And so all the knowledge that goes with the historic cherry varieties or pear varieties of this region is going out the window. It's not just the plants themselves. Well, why care about this? Well, because that food diversity that is still around the Northwest and that is celebrated by your best chefs here is being impacted in some really remarkable ways by climate change. Already, think about this, that a place like Central Valley of California that had half of its acreage in stone fruits in the foothills around the valley after World War II is now down to about 5% of its acreage in orchards, or even suitable for orchards, because of climate change, high temperatures in the summer and not enough chill hours during the winter. And the predictions are that within 40 years, there'll be no fruit production left in the fruit basket of California. About 80% of the wine grapes grown in the area where I live in southern Arizona won't be able to be grown there in another 20 years because they're already at their temperature optima. And the wine growers or grape growers in our area know this, and they're trying out a lot of other varieties and getting some really interesting results. So it's not all a bad story to switch varieties, but what I'm saying is it's restructuring where our food is grown and how it's grown. People are trying different techniques, putting their rows in different directions than they had in the past, and a lot of other things. But it's a major concern because most of the environmental organizations in this country actually see agriculture as not only being vulnerable to climate change, but a driver of climate change, or at least our food system is. At 46% of the Americans' carbon footprint is our food print. And ironically, from my perspective, it's not the production of the food that's causing those carbon emissions, but what we do with it once it leaves the farm and ranch gate. That there's tremendous use of fossil fuels at every stage after the harvest too, from doing cold storage to putting it on a truck or a railroad car that goes halfway across the country. Railroad cars, of course, use far less fossil fuel or that's embedded in it than trucking. But all the way through watering salad greens 8 to 10 times a day before they reach our plates. There's a lot of energy and water embedded in our food at every stage. And so how we deal with that means that we have to really redesign how food moves from farm to table. And there's some interesting experiments, of course, in this area that does that. So if we're going to reduce the rate of climate change, it really means figuring out ways to take the fossil fuel and fossil groundwater, particularly in our region, out of our food system and replacing it with renewables. And this is going to take some major efforts. I think it's a challenge as serious as getting people to the moon, that it's going to take that much scientific ingenuity and public creativity. So the need to redesign our food systems has never been greater, but we've not said to, Sally Farmer or Joe Sixpack or whoever, hey, you're a co-designer of your food system. This is too important to leave up to experts. We all need to be involved in it. And it may take some skills that we don't typically see in the farm community or in the agribusiness food distribution community, that people who are landscape architects, artists, architects that know about collaborative design processes may be as valuable to be as part of this redesign of our food systems as the food producers and chefs themselves. And I'll talk about some examples of that kind of thing in a moment. Particularly in the kind of dry climates that you have in eastern Oregon, all the way down to where I live in the stinking hot desert of Arizona, we really need a redesign of our food systems, not just the on-farm ones, but the food distribution and delivery. So I did a book about 10 years ago called Coming Home to Eat. And what that's really about is our communities taking responsibility for our food security, safety, and sustainability, rather than thinking that the government will do it or that Cisco Foods should decide how what food gets to our cafeterias, or Sodexo should be the sole company thinking about how food moves across the country, or that we should just do everything that Cargill and Monsanto suggests that we do. They should be part of the picture, but they shouldn't be the whole picture. And even the Farm Bureau, that says it represents the American farmer, is now fairly resistant to talking about climate change adaptation as a positive thing, where other groups like Rural Voices for Conservation Action that began in Oregon, I believe, is taking that one on and saying, yeah, if farmers don't become part of that process, we will inevitably lose out because other people will be designing our food systems without us. So many grassroots farm organizations are on this topic, where the Farm Bureau is hoping that it goes away. It's not going to go away. And so the big message is that you all are the future designers of our food systems, and all the students going through the Hort program here are probably key to that evolution. And it means that we have to change our education structure so that we get students out into the fields, into the food sheds, rather than thinking that you can absorb all of this off the internet or from books. And the hands-on kind of education that you have here at this college, I think, is exemplary of the skill set that we need for people. That this can be a training center for how to adapt our food systems in the face of climate change, that will be incredibly important to the economy and the ecology of this region, to the not just to the wealth, but to the well-being of the residents of this area, because it's bridging that theoretical knowledge of horticulture with the pragmatics of making it work on the ground. And so this term climate-friendly food systems, I think, is more than just jargon. We have to figure out ways to start adaptations now, because with, say, apple trees or pear trees, we have to plan 20 to 40 years out. We can't just rip a tree out 20 years from now and say, oh, the climate's changed by 2.5 degrees, and put something else in and expect it to produce an apple the next day.